Make a motion to report the
Two? Okay. Where's my agenda?
all in favor?
I need a second.
Yeah.
And
It's a rowdy bunch. You might have to slow me down.
Just turn it over. Yeah, just turn it over.
Oh, I gotta call it for order. So we have the joint work session. Do we need to stay who's here? No. Okay. So I'm just gonna turn this over.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna do a short meeting. There you go. I'm just going to give a quick little introduction and introduce the consultant that's presenting tonight. But we are here tonight with the joint meeting with the Planning Commission and City Council. We're coming to you with findings for the Downtown Gateway Plan. This project kicked off in the fall of 2023. And we are now where we can get some final input from the Planning Commission and City Council. In hopes that we will come to this point in the coming months. So this effort was made possible. So I've got to give a little shout out to Mountain Land Association of Governments. So Daniel Wayne is here with Mountain Land Association of Governments. We actually applied for a CAD grant. So government grant. And with the money for MAG in order for this effort. So we definitely want to give a shout out to our partners at Mountain Land for helping us with this project. So we hired a team of consultants. Jeremy is the sole representative of the consultant team tonight. Jeremy does a great job, but he's going to give an overview of the transportation analysis, the land use analysis, the economic analysis, and the active transportation. So there's a lot of information. You probably saw that when you opened up the documents. We not only have the downtown gateway, the downtown gateway plan, but we also are sharing with you our first ever active transportation plan. Really having an active transportation plan for the community. So anyway, so I'm going to turn some time over to Jeremy Searle. He is with WC Consultants and
WCG.
WCG. And he's gonna. We've got a long presentation. He's going to try to go through these as quickly as possible. But he would like to have comments as we move through the presentation. We will also keep track of time, like we're spending time on one particular element of this plan. Because we would like to do that. Recognizing that we know that you're still going to, this will not be the last time that you see this. And like to see adoption of this in the future. So more than anything tonight, we want to give an opportunity to the Planning Commission, City Council to give us some feedback. And so we know how to address any additional suggestions that you may have as we move forward. With that, I'll turn some time over to Jeremy and we'll move to the presentation.
Great. Okay, thank you, Jill. As you said, my name is Jeremy Searle. I grew up here in Payson, attended Payson schools growing up, and now just live outside of town. So,
Smooth.
You won't say
Smooth.
I'm in Woodland Hills, so not far. Come down all the time. WCG stands for Well Consultant Group. We also had SOMAS on our team for land planning and LRB for economic analysis. So we'll jump right into it. As Jill said, we have quite a bit of information here. This, as you heard, this project took just over a year. And there's a lot of elements to this. And it took a lot of effort and collaboration with many in this room. And I want to say thanks to everyone who's involved, especially your staff. They're just wonderful. They work so hard. They care so much about the community. And so it's really good to have their participation, as well as Dan at MAG and many others. As we go through this, we're going to talk first about the Downtown Gateway Plan. And so you can kind of see there, we'll talk about why the study was needed, what some of our goals and objectives were, and then what that analysis and recommendations are. Also, as part of that, there was a historic district overlay code that was a draft of that was put together, and we'll talk more about that. And then, of course, the active transportation plan. I'm going quick through this so that we don't go over our time, but I think everyone in this room is probably aware there is a new interchange coming at Main Street, and that's going to be split. The first phase of that is being designed right now, and that will be kind of the first part of the Nebo Belt Loop. And you can see that road on the screen there that goes from the new I-15 interchange down and connects on SR 198, kind of near the hospital or the new development down there. Okay, so that's a big part of where it is, right? Things are changing in this area. We've got a new interchange, the traffic patterns are changing, and that's going to cause additional growth and development pressure in this area. Of course, there's also the UVU campus coming. That's an exciting thing to have that satellite campus there. They, of course, own that property there behind the power and sewer plant there, and next to that interchange. So that, again, that will promote more development, more growth, more need for people to get there to and from, and more opportunities for economic growth as well. Then, of course, the Payson Frontrunner station. My understanding is Payson Frontrunner's plan to come to Payson within the next 5 to 8 years. I don't think the exact timeline has been nailed down yet, but there's studies and things that are going on right now to define that and where that goes. The station area plan is underway and should be done shortly. That's looking at potential development and how things will look around that station. And so with all of this going on, that's going to put a lot of pressure on this area and what's happening. And we wanted to make sure that Payson Main Street remained a vital and vibrant corridor that tied historic downtown with all the new things that are happening, and that it wasn't forgotten or overrun or anything like that. And so that was kind of our goal in this, and why this study was needed. As I'm going through this, please let me know if you have questions or you want to talk about something. Like I said, there's a lot of information. If you wait till the end, we'll have gone through 10 other things and it might be hard. So if you have a question, please just let me know and I'm happy to talk about that. Okay, so what's our study area? There on the right, you can see an area outlined in yellow. It goes from the historic downtown up Main Street all the way to the interchange and encompasses about a block or so on either side of Main Street, and then kind of spreads out behind the Payson Market, up where the old Flying J was, and that area there, as there's a lot of potential for growth and things in that area, right? So that's kind of that study area. Okay, so one of the first things that we did when we met is we wanted to talk about, well, what are our goals and objectives? What do we want to accomplish here? And you can see those listed there on the screen. We wanted to mitigate I-15 as a barrier. There's all those things on the north side or the west side of I-15, the Frontrunner station and the surrounding community, the UVU campus. How are people going to get across I-15, right? More than just in vehicles, right? So it's active transportation. We want people to have access to transit, those types of things. We also wanted to improve the utilization of land in the study area, right? There's some underutilized land there. There's some vacant parcels. What is this going to look like? How can we do that? We wanted to create kind of a gateway to the community with Main Street, and hence the title of the study, right? We wanted to let people know, hey, you're entering Payson. This is a unique community. We want to preserve that small town feel, and so that was one of our goals there. We also wanted to emphasize Main Street as the route that for the Nebo Scenic Byway. Of course, that's important. That's a lot of traffic that goes that way and goes up the canyon and sees that. And so that's an important feature of the community that we wanted to highlight. And then, as I mentioned, maintain that small town identity in the community. All right. So there was a lot of analysis in this. We've tried to simplify it and share that with you tonight. So we'll talk about kind of three main focuses: the transportation, the economics, and the land use. All right. First of all, transportation. We know that Payson is growing, and that traffic is always a question and always a problem. A really cool thing about the new interchange and the new design of the interchange is that it actually relieves traffic pressure on Main Street, right? And I'm sure that many of you were involved or know about the environmental study that was done for that interchange. But what it does is it actually splits the traffic so that not everything is forced down Main Street, but it can also use that new Nebo Beltway Road to get to SR 198. So by splitting that, we can preserve Main Street. We don't have to widen, we don't have to take out homes, we don't have to do any of that. So that's an exciting and a good thing there. And so that's what this is showing is you can kind of see a dip in traffic there, around 2030-ish when that interchange is open. So that traffic dips down as it splits, and then it rises a little bit as Payson continues to grow, but it's still within that threshold of keeping Main Street the same way. Yeah. Yeah.
Then when it does reduce, will it reduce back to the level?
Yeah, it will reduce down to about today's levels, and then start to grow back up as Payson continues to grow. Yeah, that's a great question. All right, so let's talk about that. So here's our proposed cross section for Main Street. This is a little bit different than what's out there now. Right now, we basically have a two-lane road, right, with wide lanes, and there's some people that park on street. There's some people that try and use the wide lane as a center turn lane, right? I used to live on 4th North, and it was always difficult to turn left on there, and we were worried about people coming up behind you and things like that. And so we heard this a lot from residents. And so there's a few elements of this cross section that we've proposed. One is to restripe it to have that center turn lane so that we can facilitate those turning movements. There was a lot of sentiment expressed by the public for that. One thing this does is it actually narrows up that asphalt section. So even though we have that additional center turn lane, it actually narrows up those shoulders a little bit. And by doing that, we can get a little bit bigger sidewalks and a little bit bigger park strips to fit things like street furniture or planters or lighting or wayfinding, things like that. We did a walking tour at the beginning of this project. We all walked down Main Street, and I'm sure as many of you have, it's not very comfortable right now. Those sidewalks are very narrow. There's mailboxes and things that are kind of jutting out into it, and different things. And so by widening out those sidewalks and making that a little bit more comfortable place for people to be, I think there's a lot of benefits there. All right. Let's see, we talked about planters and improved lighting, wayfinding. One thing I haven't talked about is bulb outs. So bulb outs is just, you've probably seen these in the community, but at intersections, we can actually bulb out or widen the corner a little bit to encourage people to, one, slow down, and two, shorten the distance for pedestrians to cross. Okay, the way that we've proposed these on Main Street is not to have them bulb out into Main Street, because that's a state road, and you had some feelings about that. There's not a lot of room to do that, but we have it out onto the side streets, and so it bulbs out a little bit there, helps calm traffic a little bit, and helps encourage those pedestrians to have a safer place to cross there.
Jeremy, just to jump in really quickly,
Yeah.
One thing that we hear a lot in Payson is our small town feel. And one of the things that contributes to that is the way that you enter our community, right? It's not a huge wide street that goes super fast, but it creates an ambiance that says, no, you're actually in a little bit different place. And that was something that we really wanted to preserve, but also enhance with safety measures. And I was really impressed with the WCG team, that they came up with a cross section that kind of addressed that, to say this will be able to handle the traffic that we're expecting into the future, but in a way that keeps our town feeling like that community that we love. So
Yeah, thanks, Roman. Okay. All right, we also had a few additional recommendations as far as connectivity. One thing that really helps spread traffic out and create good connections between different neighborhoods is to have that grid pattern or grid network there. And so you can see some proposed future roads there, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the screen. That's kind of continuing that grid network and making those connections through there as those areas develop. We also have a recommendation to extend 6 North into the signal right there at McDonald's. I know that that was something that was explored when that signal was put in, and there were some challenges with that. As that interchange is reconstructed and things change, there will likely be another opportunity to explore that again. And we recommend, that the city pursue that. So again, I used to live on 4th North, in this neighborhood in green, was my ward. But I know that neighborhood, and it's hard to get out of 4th North from there, right? It's trying to turn onto Main Street can be challenging. And so if that's your only way out is 4th North, that's a challenge. And so with that connection to the signal at 6th, that really helps alleviate that pressure and gives people options and ways to go there. And that's what I'm talking about in that last bullet, is it gives people a way to get out of there other than that 4th North or having to go clear around, right, to get out of that neighborhood. So, yeah. So yeah, number 1 is not an existing road right now. You're right. But there's a lot of empty fields right now through that area, back behind the Payson Market and to the south. And so one day those will develop. And when they do, we recommend that road go through so that people, again, have options to get up into those neighborhoods and they're not all forced to use Main Street. They can use that extension of 100 East to get through that. Okay, we'll talk more about active transportation, but we want to just focus on this gateway area. So one of the big keys here is that Bamberger connection under I-15. Again, saw that at our walking tour. We want to preserve that as an active transportation connection right up to the UVU campus, and then from there over to the front runner. Having a way for people to walk and bike to those areas is so critical. Students at UVU or people riding the front runner station, especially in this north area of Payson, you don't want to have them drive to get around or have to walk through an interchange to get there, right? And so if they just have this connection right there, that is just so important. And so we've really emphasized that in the study and mentioned that with UDOT multiple times as a key connection for them to preserve as they do their interchange project.
Make that bigger or small? I mean, you after foot traffic or you after?
Yes, we're after active transportation. So peds and bicyclists primarily, right? Pedestrians. So probably keep it the same. The hope is that, they can maybe improve that as they do their interchange project, but at a minimum, we want to preserve what's there. Not make that better. So, okay. Our plan also shows parallel multi-use paths or trails a couple blocks off of Main Street. We talked a lot about potentially having those on Main Street, but there's so much going on right there, and people riding bikes and things on those trails may not want to be right next to that heavier traffic volume. But if you go 2 blocks off, you can go the same direction without near the amount of traffic right next to you as you're biking with your family, right? And so it also gives you good connection up into the city center or the neighborhood center that we talked about right in the middle there, and as well as connecting over to that Bamberger connection to the north. So there's some real positives there. We also show multi-use paths on 6th North and 4th North, as well as some bike lanes on 5th East. and 198. So any other questions on active transportation in this area? Okay. All right, so let's talk about the economic assessment. And I'll be the first to admit, I am not the economic expert. We have Fred on our team is amazing at this, and I think he did a fantastic job. And he's got some really good analysis. And one thing I want to point out is Fred didn't just focus on that small area of the gateway. He looked at the entire city and said, okay, this is the population, this is the growth, this is what's currently being supported, this is where sales tax is coming in or being leaked to other communities. And using that citywide and regional data, he can then say, okay, what can this area support? What is financially feasible to support in this area when we look at the big picture? We're going to come back to that in a second, but I just want you to realize that he's looking at this from a big picture point of view, okay? So a couple of key things here. He did an existing conditions evaluation with all this, like I mentioned. It's important to note that over the last 10 years or so, Payson City's taxable sales have increased by 8.8%. That's pretty awesome. So we're getting growth there. We're seeing that increase. It's also important to look at, right? It's never enough, right? We want more. We want it to grow even more. But I do think that Payson is taking very good steps and strides in this direction. One of the key analyses he did is he looks at sales tax leakage. Okay, so what that means is if you look at your community and your population and kind of what you have there, how much of that sales tax that you are collecting in your city, how much of that are you retaining, right, when people go spend? So like, for example, I said I'm from Woodland Hills. Woodland Hills retains almost zero sales tax percentage because we all leave, right? We buy a few things online, but I come to Payson to shop, or I come to Spanish Fork to shop, right? And so that means you're picking up additional sales tax from other communities, right? And so you can see that in the retail, right? Retail, you're getting 104% of what you would expect for your community. So more than what would be expected for your community. However, in some of the others, industry, general services, and some of the smaller other services that don't fit in those categories are a little bit under that 100%, okay? Yeah.
I think if you look at this leakage a little bit closer, with retail, it shows we're getting more than we're sending out, but general merchandise is like $66 million over, but you get home goods, clothing, all appliances, all these other things were way under. So it's saying these Walmart or grocery stores are bringing this retail up, but almost everything else is way low.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. That's some good detail there. So through this analysis, Fred determined that the gateway area should focus on the neighborhood scale retail and kind of a mix of uses through there. And the reason for that is, one, you already have some retail throughout town, right? Of course, you've got the area around Walmart, you've got Smith's and other things along 198. And of course, this area. And that neighborhood retail is kind of what this can support in this area. And then in the very near future, you've got a new interchange, and that's going to attract regional commercial. And we talked a lot about that. And we don't want to cannibalize one from the other or compete. There's a lot of advantages with that new interchange and the wide open spaces that you can develop from, fresh and that good location in the freeway and things. So that regional commercial is going to be pulled to that new interchange, and that's where you're going to see that regional center. And that's actually a study that the city is going to start looking at that area. And so you'll see more about that regional center. So looking here, again, to not cannibalize from each other, that neighborhood retail with that mix of uses is what was financially supportable in this area. And so that helped form the basis of our land use plan, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Robert or Jill, anything that you want to add to this or other questions?
That's I would just say that this is a really key component of this, because one of the main questions that we wanted answered through this study was, we have some available land there, but we're not entirely sure what we should go after. And this study helped us to kind of narrow that down and say, really, this neighborhood scale retail is going to perform the best in this area. And so we should be looking at those opportunities and maybe saving the regional opportunities for those other areas.
And because of the scale and size of the new interchange, it allows us to keep Payson Main Street smaller, right? More hometown
Exactly right.
businesses.
Yep.
And that will alleviate the temptation for us to slap a huge big box store there on that road. So we'll have that space on the interchange road.
Yeah, thank you. That you made that point perfect. Okay. All right. Fred also did a what we call SWOT analysis, or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You can see those listed there. I won't read through all of them, but I think there's a few key ones. Strengths, of course, your historic nature of your downtown. That's just awesome. It's a wonderful thing to capitalize on. Some opportunities. You've got some of that vacant parcels that Robert mentioned, kind of around the Payson market and stuff. So there's some opportunities there to do that. So I talked about threats. You know, there's that future development competition, right? We don't want to be cannibalizing from each other, competing with these areas. And then as far as weaknesses, you know, that lack of connectivity, right? That we talked a little bit about, and how do we address that? So yeah, Brian.
I'd add a strength in there is that it's not a 5-lane main street.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest strengths that we have is the uniqueness of our main streets. And that's a big strength.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. That's actually a great point. If you look along the Wasatch Front and you go to any interchange on I-15, how many of those are just a 2 or 3 lane road? Very few, right? Most of them, as you go up and down, they're all 5-lane roads or bigger, right? Spanish Fork Main Street, and then you get to Springville and Provo and Orem, right? Those are all big time roads that hit I-15, right? So that is unique, and that's a great point, Brian.
The north exit would be 5.
That's correct. Yeah, the new one would be 5. Yep, and that's another reason why it attracts some of that regional commercial.
Enough money.
The exit would be.
Will be designed for it.
That's the plan, though. You're absolutely right.
Only for. It's increased.
Call your legislator.
That's something we need to talk about a little later. Toll roads.
That's a whole different conversation.
Or road tax or something.
Transportation utility fee, right?
Yes.
All right.
That's a whole nother discussion for another day.
It is.
Sorry to bring it up.
All right. So there are a few recommendations that come out of this from the economic assessment. Of course, we want to support and encourage our local business owners. We want to encourage the development of trigger sites, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. About what we want to encourage that economic growth through this area with that focus on the neighborhood scale retail. Make some improvements along Main Street to encourage that economic growth. Things like beautification, the planters that we talked about, the street lighting, the improved wayfinding and signage through there, that make it such a unique feel. And we'll talk about kind of what you've already done with your downtown historic core as well. And then encourage that development and preserving that historic downtown. So, all right, let's talk about trigger sites. So when we reference trigger sites here in the study, there were a few key parcels in the study area that we identified as being a trigger or a catalyst to growth in this area, and identifying that type of look and feel and identity that we're going for along Main Street. And so those that we identified were that 100 North and Main Street parcel, the 400 North Farmers Market, the Nebo School District parcel, some areas around I-15, we'll talk about those, and then a couple in historic city properties within historic downtown. All right, so let's talk about this area right here at kind of your main intersection, 100 North and Main Street. We met with the property owners here. They own the old church site, and then of course the city owns right there at the corner where you've got the marquee. And we looked at that and said, this is just it. This is what ties Main Street to your historic downtown, right? And you've got kind of an empty parcel there that's just primed to make that tie-in or that connection to the corridor. And as we looked at that, one of the example properties we looked at was this property up in Lehigh. So if any of you have been to the Lehigh Main Street and seen the improvements that they've done there, they've done a really nice job with that and preserving their small town. And they did this building here that you see in the picture. And while a lot of what you see in these pictures and these concept drawings and things are just that, they're concepts, they're ideas. That doesn't mean it has to look exactly like this. That's not what we're saying. It's to give ideas and examples of what we're talking about. So don't get too caught up in the exact design of it, right? All of these would be refined to fit the nature of Payson. But something like this. Oh, yeah, please.
You mentioned Lehigh Main Street.
Yeah.
It's another one of those full-time main streets.
Yeah.
But what happened on Lehigh's Main Street is they improved it and they still Pioneer Crossing in. Lehigh's Main Street is an absolute bog right there.
It's a challenge, right? And
Absolute bog. You can't move on it at all.
you have some advantages from.
So we
from
need to
the-
stay away from that. That's what I'm trying to say.
I agree, and I see where you're coming from, but Payson has some advantages. Mainly, you don't have Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain right behind you, right? That's number one advantage. So that's what's driving that, right?
It is, but we want to make sure we don't cause that to happen on our Main Street.
Agreed. All right. Anyway, so this is a trigger site, a wonderful opportunity to do something really cool here to tie these together. All right. Let's talk about the 4th North site. So once again, we met with the property owners. We talked to them about this. They do a really awesome farmers market kind of around that Halloween time. You can see it there on the left. But a lot of the rest of the time, it's kind of an empty lot, right? And sometimes they do other things, but it's kind of an empty lot part of the year, or a large part of the year. And I think there's a real opportunity there to do something really cool, that hometown type of feel at this location. We love the use, we want to support it, and we want it to make more of a full-time business, if you will, out of that, right? And so there's a few examples here of kind of these farmers markets or red barn type things that you see. So a couple one in Payson, Santa Quinn, French Fork, you've seen these around, and they're pretty awesome. So that seems like a real opportunity there. Okay, let's talk about the Neville School District transportation parcel. There's a lot of discussion about this when we met with Matt and the school district here on this. They do intend to sell this property in the future and do a new bus depot. We talked about different uses and opportunities here. And as we did our economic analysis, as you can see there, how does he word it here? It would be, this parcel would likely be more valuable to the district in the short term and more valuable to the city in the long term if it were redeveloped as multifamily housing. And I know there's questions about that. It's a great industrial property, or it could be used as an industrial property. It could be used as commercial or other things. But as we looked at the analysis, it really showed that it functioned best in this community as housing, because we've got that neighborhood scale retail just to the west of this and along Main Street, creating that that kind of neighborhood scale downtown center. It needs rooftops to support that, right? That retail is not going to come unless it has the rooftops there to support it. And so that's kind of what that analysis showed. So any questions on that? Yeah, Brian?
I got a couple things on that.
Yeah.
One is, I don't know if you're gonna get a rooftop in this area to support a neighborhood thing. and I look at, part of this is gonna be supported, like, you got a restaurant, it's gonna be supported by the rest of the community plus the interstate traffic. You got interstate traffic right in this location. But something like this, like if Wheeler machinery came in there, their sales tax is gonna be so big, I don't know if that might offset the housing that's gonna bring in, you know, to support this neighborhood. And I don't know which way for sure, but I'm just thinking there's gonna be other things than just housing supporting this area, because if we just did on the housing, it's not gonna work anyway, so anyway, it's just a few thoughts I have.
Great thoughts, and I appreciate that, Brian. So a couple things to think about. There's some sales tax that would come from an industrial use, right? And I'm not disputing that. But long term, if you're trying to create a district or a neighborhood community through here, having an industrial site kind of right in the middle of it isn't very conducive for that, and it kind of hampers some of the uses that you can put around that. And so there's some things to think about there, that when you're trying to create this overall plan or this area, you want it to be conducive to each other and fit together. So there's that. And then the other thing I just want to mention is, although this is recommended in the plan, the city has the overall say of what to do here, right? So we're not trying to dictate to you, but that's yours. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're
Teresa,
gonna
thank you.
have over 3,500 rooftops just a couple blocks further north. I agree with Duncan. To me, it's so close to the freeway. That more for commercial. I know how we feel about high density anyway, because I feel right now we already have enough high density. And with that other 3,500, that we have to let go on the church ground, that's gonna be way high density. I think we're meeting our high density. And I don't think somebody's gonna want to in there and put a little home on a quarter. That's not good. I just,
That's the kind of housing we're talking about, square and talking about.
yeah, no, I don't even think that's the place to put housing. I mean, you've got the diesel place there, he might sell out, you know, you've got, Strawberry Electric, you've got SC, both the same, you've got the water place. I mean, I can see you going that whole area and putting in a nice little commercial place. I just don't see that high density, because we have to put that 3,500 units on that 100 or 200 acres, whatever it is. How far away is that? Yeah.
Probably about a mile or so.
We definitely want to
3/4.
keep our options open on.
Right, and I think that's what Jeremy's saying also. I mean, this plan is providing direction of how it would work. The analysis we have, the economic analysis of how it could support, how surrounding uses could support the retail. Because we do see that uses and businesses are going to shift because of the other options available. And so how can we make this a viable area? We saw this years ago, even when Walmart came in. Because Walmart located on 8 South, all these businesses in the center core of the city wanted to move. They wanted to move down where there was the traffic, where there was the facility, where there was going to be spin-off from Walmart. Not everyone moved, but we started to hear that sucking sound. And, you know, and so it's the same thing with this neighborhood. You've got a gas station, you have a hotel, and you have a McDonald's, and you have all these other businesses that are at a neighborhood grocery store. How are we going to support these businesses that are there? And how are we going to promote new businesses to go in the area and be viable when there's these other options in 3/4 of a mile? And so, again, that's where the balance is, you know, of looking at the economics of it. Is what is that perfect balance? And it's really tricky. It really is. And we know that this will change, but you can hold the key to the zoning in this area. And I've heard from some of you that you want to be a little bit more conservative with this and wait to see how some of these properties redevelop, see what new development goes in before you're fully comfortable with the additional residential units there. And yeah, and I get that. And you know, sometimes it is easier to move into it slower than go in and rezone everything to support opportunity of having a really nice neighborhood, walkable, very convenient, development for a community, and also a very attractive, entrance to our community. So we've got to find a way to work that all into this plan and support that with our
Over the.
well, and that's the challenge we think that, again,
Residential here, and then all of a sudden you got, I hate to see people get boxed in.
well, and that was the whole purpose of this. I mean, one of the primary purposes of this plan was we see some underutilized properties. We see some properties that could be developed. We see some vacant land, some prime property that, you know, with good access, or with some redevelopment, that could really benefit the community. It's not going to happen, overnight. And it's gonna take a lot of communication working with these property owners. We're showing for where the diesel site is that it would be a redeveloped area with a mix of commercial. But yeah. So,
I hate to see the ridiculous, then you got residential people.
right. Well,
Right now, what's now the Park Street, that's like.
Let's have that transition.
you have to have the transition, and then also just for the value of the land, just going back a little bit to the Needle School District site. There's a lot of value with how that is configured right now and the improvements that are there and the buildings that are there. And I think that's what Councilman Hewitt was mentioning. If you were to redevelop the site, you have to increase the value for the district on the site. And so that is one of the reasons that we're looking at multifamily, not only for those that will be visiting or shopping there, or those that will be recreating in the area, or the transition to but you've got to enhance the value of that for anyone, district or future property owner, to consider that might benefit the entire neighborhood.
I know you lost about 2,000 out there, that is
I think it's more than just zoning it commercial. I think a lot of it has to do with.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, I mean, I've had different people look for the parking come up. Money just on fine. So that's but I don't know, like you say, it's gonna have to be one of those ones you just gotta watch to see what comes this way. I mean, to me, that's the way I look at it. I like your idea. We gotta decide where we're gonna put commercial stuff, we can put it into one area, like put all the houses over there on the other side. But we kinda got to, can't lump everything into one spot, and then everybody likes to get to that spot.
So I actually really like this example of the south. You'll notice that those properties have pretty much sat vacant for a long time. What they're waiting for is the rooftops. And if you probably know this, but there's several new developments coming in, one called New Salem and one called Modera on the Spanish Fork side, and several others. And they're putting in some high density housing. And those are phased so that the high density housing comes in first, and then the commercial along 8,000 south. And so you make a great point. Like, yeah, they have commercial, and yes, those are worth a little bit more along the highway there, but they won't develop, and you won't see anything come of it unless it has the rooftops to support it. And that's what we're trying to create here, is to have that. And so it all kind of works together. You can't, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, great point. Tracy.
Sticks on walkabout cities, because everything I've looked at, they have not succeeded. They have not done what they were supposed to do. I mean, like I was just down in Arizona, I went through all these little, they have, I'm sure you've been there. They have all of their little communities, and then they've got their shopping centers. It's all really close, but nobody walks.
Felt 12,000 degrees.
Only 70 down there.
This week.
It's a great question. And I'm probably not the most equipped to answer this. Chris, our land investment, but there's lots of good examples where things are succeeding, right? We look at the street, done some redevelopment, there's some mixed uses, some housing, some commercial use, that's working really well. Lehigh Main Street, I think, is working well, as far as not traffic wise, but other things, right? So there are good examples, right? And I'm sure there's bad examples, but I think in general, if you do it right, you design it right, it can be very successful. And then I thought, yeah, it's a great question. In fact, we're going to talk more about the site plan here in just a couple minutes, and I think we can talk about what we plan there. We did talk about that. Again, it's a little bit about demand, right, and what we can support in the city. And so we want to preserve that Paris RV and have complementary uses around that. And so we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Yeah, right. Paris RV, we've talked about with church property just north of Paris RV, that might be an auto mall type area.
Yeah, we would anticipate that those types of more regional uses, because a car dealership and like a Paris RV is a regional type of situation that would benefit more from access to the new interchange rather than directly like a parcel like this one.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, it comes from these oddly shaped parcels or smaller ones, right? But, you know, that wide open area, brand new interchange, you can really do some regional type things. So, yeah. Okay. We're going to keep moving here. So we talked a little bit about trigger sites. We're going to shift into this land use assessment because I see that's where a lot of these questions are coming. When we did this, we looked at it and we said, you know, there are really three kind of distinct areas or districts in this study area. So we've got these highlighted here in blue, green, and red. So in blue, we have what we call our downtown district. So that's kind of our historic downtown. We've done a wonderful job of preserving. And then as it shifts or extends a little bit to the north. Then we have what we call our Main Street district. These are kind of those historical homes, that small town feel, those white picket fences, the nice neighborhood that we've got right there, right? And then we have the Gateway area or the Gateway district, that area in red to the north around the interchange, where we've got some opportunities to expand upon the commercial that's there, some redevelopment and some empty parcels that we can utilize in that Gateway area and welcome people to visit. So let's start down at the very south end. So this downtown or this historic area. Once again, Payson's done a fantastic job here in our new project. Of course, you've got your new sign there with the historic downtown. You've got the walkable areas, the bigger sidewalks, the gathering places to eat. Yeah, I took these pictures around Christmas, so it was cold outside. But it just is awesome. You know, it's a great place, and you guys have done a wonderful job with that. We want to preserve that and continue to augment it or enhance that. And we've talked about some of those recommendations. Here's a few more. We could consider establishing an RDA or other funding mechanisms to promote the preservation of historic buildings. We'd encourage more entertainment uses in this downtown area to bring people downtown, have them eat at the restaurants, go to the swimming team, those types of things, and preserve that area. We've talked about trigger sites, and then we'll talk about the historic overlay code here. Let's shift north. So we've got kind of our Main Street district. So these are these historic homes. Again, like the white picket fence, that neighborhood, small town feel, right? We want to preserve that. We want to keep that. That's what makes Payson unique in a special place. And so we want to maintain that and help tie that together with your historic downtown, with those commercial buildings downtown, right? So a few recommendations for that. We want to preserve that small town feel. We've talked about that, protect that neighborhood. We do suggest supporting adaptive reuse. What do I mean by that? So we want to preserve the home, but sometimes the use of those homes can change, right? And they can become commercial things, or a little office space, or a little insurance place, or things like that, where those properties are still utilized, people in the community still go there and business or different things.
But maybe not with a super ugly sign.
Yeah. No, maybe not the best example, but
No, this is a good example of what not to do in the sign.
okay.
Yeah.
That's in Spanish.
But awesome example of how you can preserve the architecture and you can preserve the feel by allowing a different use to come in there. Much better example across the street. Better sign too.
I must have missed that comment. I missed that comment out, because I think I have a picture of that, and I thought you said to switch it, so I must have missed it.
No, this is a great example of what not to do on the front of your house.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Robert. All
If you want to give me an early heart attack, do this.
I don't think you
Sorry.
improved the colors, would you? Oh, is that taken away from us now?
We would find a way. We would find a way. Yeah. Sorry, I hijacked that.
No, this is great. This presentation has good examples and bad examples. We've talked about signage for the Nebo Scenic Byway. That's a key component of this main street. We want to show that, have some monuments or some signage along there to help enhance that.
I have a question on the byway, because I think at one time we were trying to route traffic around by Payson Market and go down past Petite Need. To me, if we really want to do this and have our downtown as a showcase, that Nebo Beltway corridor needs to go right to downtown Main Street, then go over to
The Scenic Byway. The Scenic Byway, yeah.
Right. Just go right through downtown Main Street, instead of trying to route it around. That's what at one time they were trying to do, I think. So.
I think the only problem is the dual direction,
Right.
Right.
because it,
But
but
you
I
get them out
think,
there and then just
yeah,
have route it.
yeah.
Anyway.
I agree with that. We want people to recognize and associate the Scenic Byway with our main street and into downtown.
But I think with online and all the social media and stuff, I think they'll know, hey, Scenic Byway goes through Payson, don't miss out on this. I think you won't even have to do the job.
Hope so.
Other people will be like, oh, check out Main Street.
Yeah. When Anne's posting about a pina colada, that's
Right, they are good. They're really good.
And on that last one, we do have a historic walk tour, but there's probably not signed for it, but there is one with a brochure.
Yeah, yeah, and there's some plaques out there, right? Yeah, enhancing that. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Okay, so let's talk about the Gateway District, or the very north end, right? So, and we'll get to the site plan here in just a second, conceptual site plan. But some ideas of some mixed uses and some neighborhood scale, economic centers or neighborhood centers in here that mix both that retail and has the residential in and around it. So let's go to here. Okay, so this is kind of an example or our recommended concept site plan here. Now keep in mind, this is conceptual. I know that we'll look at this and say, well, you could move this or switch that or change this. But again, this is kind of a high level idea or concept. When developers come in, you can use this to talk to them about it and refine it. And they'll have their own ideas that they'll want to implement. But this is a good starting point to kind of to build from.
And just to make sure you're oriented correctly.
Yeah.
This is Main Street right here.
Yeah.
McDonald's is currently here. The Payson Market is right here. You know, I did a bad job at our open house by some people thought that Main Street was over here. So this is the undeveloped area currently. And this is considering what our new braided ramp system would be. It doesn't look like this right now, but this is what it will eventually look like. Okay.
Yeah, so those are property lines. So our first drafts of this, we had some things kind of crossing those. And we said, you know, that probably doesn't make sense, or it would be difficult to develop across two properties like that. So let's refine this so that it kind of fits in the existing land ownership. If that makes sense. So Robert did a great job of explaining that. We've got the new interchange there. Main Street's kind of on the left-hand side a little bit. You've got Terrace RV up at the very top of the screen. Of course, we want to preserve that. You can see some kind of flex use spaces around that to support that. That's that commercial supporting uses up there. We recommend a hotel there on that Flying J site, some commercial, and kind of that center plaza, and yeah, kind of heart of the neighborhood scale retail or that commercial area right there. That it's kind of the heart of that. You see some commercial growth around it. We maintain and preserve, support the Payson market and some of those uses through there. As we get kind of to the south and east corner, it's a quick transition back to the single family neighborhood. We've got a few townhomes, and then it quickly goes to single family lots through there to match what's already existing there. Just north of that is the Nebo School property, that long rectangle there. That's where we have that multifamily proposed that we talked about. It keeps them close to that economic center. They can walk there. They can be part of that that center, that plaza that we talked about. Can easily walk over there and shop and eat at restaurants and things like that, and have that rooftop to support. And then on the very east side, we talked a little bit about potential redevelopment of the SESD and stuff, but determined that in all likelihood that's going to stay long term, and so we maintain the SESD and the strawberry water and those uses there, with a little bit of townhomes at the very south end bordering 6th North. So that's a quick walkthrough of the conceptual. I know there's probably questions, and we'll start with Brian.
Well, I just something to that really make me sell. Buy the hotel, put the steakhouse.
And then we're sold.
Yeah.
In the verbiage.
Yeah.
On the map, put steakhouse.
Right there, right there.
You gotta pay.
We would put them anywhere. That's right.
Sorry, I'm not being mean. But high density, those high density because they can't afford a lot of things. Yeah, they're not gonna eat out because only still. A lot of them probably stop. I mean, a lot of people stop because something to the economy, but I just can't see. But to be shops, they want to walk around. I think there's so many times.
And my appetite is have, but they, like I said before, I think this gives a chance to study a little more. So I'd like to see a little less garden courts and a little less urban townhomes. You look at that's a lot of people. And I think a townhome applies in a lot of those places. High density without being stacked on top of one another. So get the rooftops and the foot traffic and go surrounding areas. And then we have that main road coming to town, then we've got flat roof, 4-story buildings. I don't think that's a good way to have it.
I'm done with all that. Issues with crime and all that stuff, right?
And front ones have offices in the, or like retail in the bottom, so like those do.
No, I don't think it's heavily supported anyway. Those stores on the bottom level.
residential. So I know why the builders like it, and I know why it makes sense to have some of this next to the main transportation hub. I still think we can keep this and shift it more towards the north beltway. That's just my opinion and thoughts right now.
Some of it just looks like every other town along I-15. I think we could put a lot of trees. People would love to go up there. They're gonna put them out there.
There was a challenge with this spot, if you wanted to put like a gas station, that'd be really easy. But to have something mixed use is a lot harder because of all smaller shops, so you do need a housing component to go with it. But I don't know if you need that much, because you still have the traffic on the interstate, you got the city for you, but you do need some housing.
But you have all that housing that's just stuff of it.
Right.
You've got all that housing that new houses too. So it's not like. Across Main Street from Payson Market. So it looks like a proposal is there with all those homes along there. So the road behind where those houses are. That makes you, I think that's confusing and kind of. Behind them with the mix, yeah, so the. Really big buildings. Yeah, but we're moving, I know. Are those the houses they talked about taking down?
Those are those 70s houses that they would love to sell tomorrow.
But I don't like the mixed use look. I'm like you, I've seen it doesn't work, but I've seen them in American Fork and stuff, and if you can fill those businesses on the ground floor, they're just random and they don't bring in a lot of foot traffic, they don't bring in a lot of business. And I just think they look. And they're a waste of space. They don't have any room.
They don't have any room, it's like, I had a pump over there coming in from South Carolina. Down below his apartment, goes there, he's got a restaurant.
We're not a city.
I don't know, you like that.
But it just looks like all those main roads in American Fork, it just looks random. And.
Oh, it looks beautiful. It really does.
On paper, it looks beautiful, but no, I mean, in American Fork and stuff, you go to some of these. And appropriate or idealistic. Oh, now we're gonna have two cafes, or gonna have two bakeries there, or gonna totally novel, but that's not reality. And we can't support that. We're not a city, we're a small town. And if we want to keep that small town, then we've got to get rid of the high density, get rid of the multi-units, townhomes and single family homes. And
What do you do for commercial?
And
Because
don't do
you
much
don't want the,
commercial
you
area.
don't want the truck stops or anything like that.
No.
So what do you do? How do you,
Two
how do you put?
hotels.
how do you-
Yeah, do another hotel, do a couple more restaurants, because it's all.
Yeah, more store, you put more storage units in.
Look up there in Idaho Falls, when you go up there, they have like a whole area and it's just all of the motels in a round circle. And then like all of the restaurants are just like a little ways away. I mean, I thought that was a really good idea.
Well,
We
and
could get
yeah, I'm looking into the future. I'm thinking that there are areas. At first it'll be new, it'll be pretty, and it looks nice. But I'm looking further into the future, and I'm thinking, this opens the door to look like Salt Lake Valley on so many of those off ramps where their intention is to have all these businesses and have high density and have these hotels. And now it's so run down. And it's so, for lack of a better word, trashy. I don't want Payson to become that. And, or they have all these vacant buildings, or it's just, I'm worried about that. And that's way far in the future, but that's why you have to decide about these things. But as we started to look at some of the households, recognizing that probably we want to sell, we were talking about the development across Main Street. We had north to west. So looking at the districts, going back to the district plan, of having the gateway that is then transitioned to the Main Street corridor, where that's really what gives us that small town feel, is the homes that are there, the architecture. You know, having the front yards. I mean, there's a lot of different elements there that we're like, oh, you sort of, you know, by a relief at the home, you're here. You know, what's that correct transition? And we felt that it was necessary to put residential in that area because we have had a number of commercial uses that have wanted to purchase those parcels, those homes. And they wanted to put automobile oriented that is not the best option either. So looking at these districts and, you know, how do you make each of these districts successful, but also how do you I don't know what the ratio would be for commercial and residential for the next year there, but for that property in particular, we felt having the residential component is important to have it there in order to have that transition to the ministry district, and to avoid auto ordinances, you know, having a car wash there, having a gas station there, having something else that has been proposed, that has been suggested, or been inquired about. I guess they haven't received the application. But, and I think part of it too, and maybe this will help with Jeremy with this presentation, sorry, Brian, is, so, also Moss, I don't know what the perfect recipe is, you know, and you develop all neighborhoods hoping that they will be successful and that they are not run down and that they stay vibrant. And I think part of that is design. And that was another thing that we looked at with this. And I know that that's on a future slide, you know, that we're getting to, is creating an overlay code to support the type of development that we want to see here. So we did look at that too, now how do you implement it? And I don't know how many slides Jeremy has on that, but looking at height, we probably, I think even maybe a version that you saw before that we talked about, which I know even 3-story is a concern, you know, for you. But part of it too is that, is it the mass, is it the scale, is it, or is it design? You know, and right, and you know, maybe even the code that is proposed that was included in this packet will help address some of those concerns. But I think it would help. There are some factors we can't control, but those that we can. Right. Let's absolutely make sure that we have the codes in place to help support good design. I think the idea would be to have multi-level. You don't become all these random buildings like where Dolphins used to be, or where the Sellers is now. All of a sudden, these 3-story buildings that it doesn't look right. And I think it can help us keep our small town feel by not doing all these high rises. And that's a challenge with redevelopment because the building next to Beck's place, so Dalton's. And as you start to fill in all of those areas, then it might look as if that's how it was planned, that was made that way. But it does look out of place, but it also opens the door for more high rises. And that's why absolutely if we want to preserve our small town feel, we've gotta limit the big city look. We've gotta limit, let's just keep it small and cute, attractive, and keep it 2-story. And then it stays small, but it can be successful. If we build too big, there's too much population, too much traffic, too much commercial space that isn't getting utilized. And it's just gonna be high turnover. So that's just my 2 cents, and
So I think, going back to I think the key right now is getting the overlay zone in there, so we limit it, so we don't get the car washes, we don't get the truck stops. At least we have that control, and then we'll kind of see it happen.
I'm not saying all the residents, less dense, but protect the zones. Auto zones.
we already have all
A quick flag and a Dollar Tree, like.
Yeah, but we do want to quit.
We have Walmart.
Want a lady Washington.
Either one. Amen. I do think we need one.
Yeah, where
We
are
have a
those,
chance to
where,
be unique.
right, and maybe that is its
We need
location,
something
because
to-
it is. As with stationary. And with the trends of development or with Redwood, there's going to be those areas that are more urban. And there's, and we need that to support growth, we need that to support, additional economic development services in our community, or educational, whatever they may be. But, yes, I mean, there are those areas in the community.
And
That's
this
bigger
would be a
scale.
promotion of, we have our chance to be unique. We don't want to look like Springville and Transport, Provo and Forum and all these places that all have spots, a lot of land right off the 515. You know, I've seen people on Facebook, especially the restaurant people want to name every single restaurant. We already have in Spanish Fork. So we don't need all the same stuff. We have an opportunity out here. Yeah, but we don't want the same one, we're just no.
I would take one of them.
So
And we're
we have a
spending in somebody
chance,
else's city.
but if that's the only motivation is because it's the tax base, then we're gonna look like every other town. We're staying at Boston and that's not. We can go anywhere else.
Yep.
I know it was a lot of. There is a lot of good information in that code for the overlay. And, and maybe that's something we need to discuss more. We won't be able to get through all of it tonight, but maybe it's looking at that code and seeing if we are addressing, if we are creating that unique location along this corridor. That was the intent.
And I can see that, and it looks beautiful. I'm just saying this is an opportunity to make sure that people, because, yeah, we could get another Texas Roadhouse and there'd be the tax base and all that stuff. But if we get a restaurant that's not nearby, we even get more. We will be unique with that unique business, it's not just Texas.
I think you gotta go to your red rooms and look so
Sure,
beautiful.
sure. Thank you, Brandon.
Something
There you go.
So why do we always have to be the same as every other? But if we do that, we might, that's what I'm saying, we have the opportunity to bring other stuff that are unique to Payson, that aren't like every other town. You drive up and down I-15, it's all the same stores, it's all the same, it's all the same. That's what? Not off the top of my head, no. So it might be a good opportunity for us to be an example. We need to travel and see. There's some really cute ones down in Texas. Little cute towns that they've got their, I just love their little towns down there. That's the only reason I live there, but it has a lot. In Utah, I can't think of one.
Something to look at.
Well, I'm comparing all the towns that look the same to each other. Go up and down, I
I can hear what you're saying. You're not explaining to the bill through.
Different restaurants. When you go along Center Street in Provo, they have some different restaurants. They just got another Edna's, it's up in Lehigh. There are two. Instead of
talking about mom and pop restaurants.
no, it's not. It's like you're gonna have to go out and actually become a foodie and go out and go to some restaurants and experience some of these things. And go, there's better food out there than just the main chains all the time. Like we need.
Restaurants criteria, located.
Well, we depends on
We meet that criteria. What do we have to do to meet that criteria?
The house tops.
Something like this. House tops is a lot.
Well, it's gonna be slow, but this, like, you can't do this fast.
Income level.
Yeah, the income level. Well, we've got Salem bringing. a lot of houses. They don't have very many. They would come here, or Spanish Fork. What's to make them go to Payson instead of Spanish Fork? If we have the same restaurant.
The traffic.
Oh, they go to Spanish Fork.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they tried to make it better.
That's one of the reasons I'm positive. Plus, the other
When
thing,
they know.
the other thing is trying to attract, once you got brings front runner down. Right? I mean, the only thing which I thought of that's even kind of conceptually like this is vineyard. But I don't know about vineyards like walk to businesses. Everyone's still driving to get to the theater to get.
Well, they're building a city center, but it's not built yet.
Yeah.
All vineyard is houses, right?
So,
Don't have any.
yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, that's even close to having front runner and then having walking areas and having a lot of business. But I don't see a whole lot of rooftops there either, but I mean.
Vineyard?
There's
There's a
no,
lot of businesses. in
There's
Vegas.
some lot of
Yeah, yeah,
rooftops.
yeah.
There's some pretty high density.
well, I'm driving up.
The commercial units and acres.
But I mean, I also picture as someone who uses public transportation back east, that I always wanted to be somewhere close to where the train didn't make me have to drive. And again, when we go back to New York now, where you're gonna have people pay taxes, there's no way I'm driving into Manhattan. But I'm gonna just park and take the train in. And stuff like that. I think there is, like what Jill's saying too, like that balance of you want to attract people that are gonna want to come down this way instead of going up north, once front runner comes. So, I see some of what you're saying too in that way. I want to find something close.
Don't you think your business is, I mean, this would take an economic development director going outside of east of Utah, probably even outside of the western, and going east and seeing all the different things they have, because there's a lot of different restaurants and things like Texas, Arkansas, Alabama that they don't have here, but they have them like in all those.
Yeah,
Or
there
even
was-
stuff
well,
that
There
they-
was,
and-
there was a rumor that I heard that the same owner that runs True Words in Orem was looking at a space on Main Street,
Yeah.
right? And so something like that is unique
Yeah.
to going to Orem, right? Having to be there right at 7:45 and then finding parking the whole other. But I mean, like even having like a breakfast place, kind of like how they have the breakfast place like in Santa Clara.
And
Yeah.
that, it has become a destination place, like it's
Yeah.
a new restaurant, it's not a chain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if it's good, and that comes down to capitalism.
Yeah.
If you have a good product, people will come.
Well, and that's why when my buddy was telling me that the True Words guy was single, I'm like, that would be fantastic. As long as I don't
And
have
it
to.
can be done.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're on the same level. I'm gonna have Jeremy actually say a couple of questions. Because I think there's a couple of things that we can address with the code here. You know, know that Brian had mentioned so, too about, you know, if we don't want the audit or to create a code to discourage or not allow those uses in there. We're trying to get the best of the best of what we think is a viable commercial, and neighborhoods, you know, commercial area. And so I don't know if we wanted, and I just want to be, you know, something that will time, but you know, he does have a slide here that talks a little about the district overlay and the tools that we can use to actually create the type of community and the type of development that we want to see.
Thank you, Jill. And this was a really good discussion and we wanted your feedback. So I just want to be quiet there for a minute and hear from you. And see, there's a lot of different ideas and I love that. And it's a challenging thing, as you can see, right? We really tried hard to base our analysis on what was economically supportable, what met the goals that we talked about at the beginning, trying to create a unique place for Payson. I understand that it may not be exactly the same as what everyone else pictures to be the best thing, right? There's going to take more discussion on that. So I appreciate that. This was good feedback. And I think that's a good segue into this next section. Jill mentioned the Historic District Overlay Code. And this is a good opportunity for you to refine this and make it fit the vision that you have for this area, right? We've created a draft of this. We think it's a very good starting point. I know that there probably needs to be some tweaks to it, and I know that Jill and Robert have that goal in mind to tweak it and make it fit your vision. What it does is it establishes these districts that we talked about. It identifies what's permitted, what's not. It lays out street standards and streetscape design, some of those unique elements that we talked about that we would expect to see. Looks at sidewalk pedestrian circulation. It identifies lot standards and architectural standards, site design, those types of things, so that you can get those unique things that you're looking for and create that community that you'd like to see in this area. As I mentioned, I would call this a draft. It's in the code, or excuse me, it's in the study. It's in the appendix there. We're providing that baseline to the city to build on, right? It gives you a great starting point, and then you can go in and tweak it to fit those needs that we talked about today. Jill, anything that you want to add to that?
It's called the Gilbert House. And it only serves breakfast and lunch. But it's just like, that place is packed. It doesn't matter what day you go there, it's always packed. The people are originally from Montana and they literally serve bison. But they have gluten-free and they have vegan. And then it's just good. Like, I think we need something like that downtown. It's awesome food.
I think you have your next business idea.
I don't like to cook anymore.
Come on.
Well, you asked for it. I really should do that, huh? Because I can't believe how busy they are. It is, and it's just cute, so cute. And you asked for an example, Blair, St. George Main Street. They've kept that small and cute, and it still has that historic feel. And their new library looks like the Pioneer Building. Well, they stayed true to their historic heritage. Instead of going big and having that, just because we have the opportunity to bring in all the same businesses and bring us revenue, we lose our personality. Bigger isn't always better, quicker isn't always better. Slow and steady and patient, and it will come. The businesses will come. If we, yes. And
But is that connected to interstate or is that?
no, that's the main.
That's why I think you've got to establish those districts, right? Because you gotta have, you go to St. George, not the freeway.
Just go down the
And
boulevard,
it's
it's 5
commercial,
minutes
Yeah,
wide.
and they get over, and that's, we have historic. That's similar, to this is a smaller.
Directly connected. Yeah, because if you go up to the historic, like they've got all these cute little stores and things now, and I mean, they're like right next to each other. They've taken a great big building and they're making places.
We have to drive there.
Right.
That's
That's what I'm saying, it's not gonna walk.
So it's like right next to the freeway, you're not gonna have to store it and, you know, because it's right next to the freeway.
But next to the freeway, they still have the different, they have all the same stuff, they have TJ Maxx and all that stuff, but they also have areas that have changed over time, like the Zion Factory Outlets, those have changed stores, they have unique things, they have unique restaurants, and they come and go, because that's happening, that's how it works.
In order for those. They have to have they're gonna have a- we're talking about here, how do you design
How do we make it livable for people who want to live in and then support businesses?
Well, you have to remember that just that neighborhood isn't gonna be the sole supporter of those businesses. No, it will come from
No,
farm.
but
And to me, I
but
would,
it is the driving factor for getting those businesses here. They've got to see those house counts. They've
Right,
got to
right.
see that number of bodies available to come to them. They won't be here.
and I disagree, they're gonna be 6 blocks down the road.
That's the way it works.
I disagree. If there's a good product, people will come for it, like, it doesn't, a business doesn't, solely rely on the homes that are right next to them.
No, it
So we
doesn't.
don't need
I'm
to
not saying
sacrifice
that.
the
What I'm
high-
saying is, you're not going to get that kind of restaurant to come unless they have the numbers that show it's going to be feasible for them.
And I
And
don't
they
think we
need,
need to do that
and
with
they
the
need to see
multi-family.
house spots in order.
That's why we do townhomes and single family homes, because the high density, we've got elsewhere, we've got growth everywhere. We've got growth in Salem, we've got growth south of us, we've got growth going west, we've got everywhere. It's coming from all over, it's not just gonna be right next door. And that would be,
So where are we gonna put it?
but that would, the growth,
Yeah, we're gonna triple in the next 30 years. Where are we gonna put those? And when near the freeway, be a good place to put some of that higher density, because we can't do single family and even townhomes that add 40,000 people.
I don't
which is pretty
I don't think we have to, I don't think you do it
So,
right on the commercial with these stuff, because people can get off the freeway right there. A lot of people are looking to get off the freeway and go eat. I mean, I do, when I'm traveling.
Put in the traffic without $6 right out.
I know.
I
That's
think
the way it
another,
works.
if I can just interject, you know, and then I'm gonna let Jeremy go to that transportation.
Sorry.
It's almost
No,
half
no, no,
time
no.
deal.
No, I know, but I told Brian that we'd only be an hour, and so does that stress?
That's long.
No,
Brian's missing out already.
but I think another thing that we.
Oh, that's not a reason for us to stop. I didn't have dinner.
Two things that we did with this project that was very unique, that I found very enlightening, is we interviewed a developer. We actually brought a developer into the conversation because we have, I mean, there's a different equation, you know, and a lot of times we're looking at, you know, what we. But sometimes we don't reach out and get them. So with this particular project, we did bring in a developer from northern, Bamako, where it was. And it was no part of it. Probably other than coming together with us as community planners and the stakeholders to say, what do you like about Payson? What do you look for? So that was very, very helpful. So I think kind of going to a lot of the points that were mentioned here is we need to continue to have conversations with those that would actually be building this. What do they do? I mean, what are they looking at? Is it just income? Is it costs and door knobs? Is it? We need to make sure that we continue to have those conversations to understand. You know, sometimes it is just put as many units as possible. You know, and it may just be a residential builder and they're not looking at commercial or mixed use. But that was one thing, and they looked at some of the different sites that we've had, this particular developer, and gave us some really good feedback for this plan. And I think that some of the findings and the recommendations regulations and some of the requirements of the code came from having this conversation with this developer that was just telling you this is how it works from a developer standpoint, at least for his experience, his, 30, 40 years of experience. And I think that we need to also have that because there probably are developers out there that are looking for that niche. They're looking for a specific type of development. And, we need to make sure that we're looking for partners in our community that can help us. That was one of the reasons for this site. What can we do on this trigger site to identify the type of development, the architecture, the type of uses, and we hope it will just continue to flourish from there. But I think a lot of these things we still consider, with the code and having conversations. But I think that developer perspective was really beneficial. I mean,
I think it was really helpful as well, because I think throughout this entire process, as we talked, as we thought about what this area would be, the whole idea of experiential retail and food service was kind of at the forefront. Like, this is an area, because we asked a lot, and we went and visited with like the owners of these properties, and they would ask us, what do you want to see here? And we would have a lot of those same conversations that you're having, and to say, we want something unique and we want something individualized that you might not see at every single freeway interchange. And they're like, what is that? And what is that? And we'll go find it. And what is it? I would just also make mention that one thing that's impressive about this plan is the amount of data that has gone into it. The analysis to say, if you want X, you need to have Y. And I think that that's been important and balanced. And as all plans are meant to be massaged, right? All plans are meant to be, this is our best guess of how we can give some direction, but it's going to change over time. And I think that the really important part about these is it not only gives us a plan, but it gives us some ordinance and overlaid code documentation to say, if you really want this to happen, at least implement this part so it can give you good direction. Now, if you want to change the density on the area, and if you want to lower the heights, and if you want to change the development type, then that's going to change your availability for commercial space, right? It's a give and take. But if you are okay with the type of uses, then we can move forward with that.
Those things do go along with this, but go back, try and get these businesses. We're gonna want to look in RDA or CRA in this area, but development area, so you have somebody come in and try and use that to attract people.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, thank you, Robert. That was really well said. There has been just a ton of work into this. We really tried to capture that unique vision, but all things can be made better and massaged over time. So I appreciate your feedback. I think it was a really good discussion that we had on this. And I love how much we all love Payson and want it to be the best. With that, I'm going to, okay, we're going to go to the next topic. That was the first topic. No, we're getting closer.
We're going to try and do this in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're getting real close. I don't want to miss the second half. So
I was trying to find the score for you.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. Okay.
No spoilers. Okay, let's talk about the active transportation plan. As Jill said, we're really excited about this. This is the first one that Payson's had. This is where we're planning out those, on-street bike network, the trails, the walking systems, that active way of moving around the city without a car. And so I think this is a really great thing. There's a lot of benefits to an active transportation plan and an active transportation system in your city. And I've got a lot of those listed there.
Let me just say really quickly, And active transportation, and when we talk about walkable cities and all that stuff, we're not anticipating that everybody's just going to leave their car or sell them all off and stuff like that. We're very realists. And we want to make sure that, you know, I'm not going to Costco without my car, without my SUV that I'm going to fill up with toilet paper because we go through who knows how many rolls in a week, right? Let me just completely obliterate that from thought. This is not the elimination of cars. This is not an attack on cars. This is not the abomination of the automobile. Active transportation is just an opportunity to move within your city and other regional places without that, if you so choose. And maybe as not only just a recreational opportunity, but maybe you can commute to work, or maybe you can walk to work, or maybe you can walk to the bus station, or maybe you can drive to the bus station. It doesn't matter. I just want to make that ground rule very, very clear. This is not an attack on cars. This is an opportunity to find other modes of transportation within our city and to key destinations at other regional points.
No, that's absolutely, yeah, I've been riding front runner across lately.
Yeah.
I throw it on there, and like the electric scooter and stuff have actually made that much more accessible to people, because people that normally wouldn't walk, they're gonna get on the train, and they can ride the train and take their electric scooter 3 miles away from the train station. Having access for people like that is actually a lot more beneficial, because people really utilize it if you provide a way to get there safely from the train station.
Yeah.
But I see a ton of electric scooters get loaded on that train every day, and people are using that as a way to.
Personally owned.
Yeah, so people are getting on, I get on in Provo and I ride up Woods Cross, and I throw my bike on there and I ride my bike 3.5 miles, but these guys are throwing scooters on. I mean, every stop, somebody's getting on with an electric scooter, getting off with scooters. And every time you can't even find a place to sit, you can't find a place to put your scooter or bike on the train, because it's the electrification of some of these things has made that a lot more feasible for people too.
That's right.
So I think, you know, if you can make it where we are getting this front runner station, can they get from front runner to historic Main Street? Can they get from front runner to?
Yep, absolutely.
So,
There's
And-
so many great destinations in Payson that people just want to, you know, get to the park, get to the front runner, get up the canyon, you know.
and they can't have one on because
Yeah.
there's a lot of options.
And this truly becomes an economic discussion as well, because communities that have access to trails and transportation opportunities and things like that, that creates economic value. It's so much more desirable. It provides a much higher quality of life. And we want to address the safety factor of that as well, to make sure that people can move within our community and to regional destinations in a safe and efficient manner, and make sure that there's not so much, I'm glad that Brad Bishop is here. There's not so much collision with, that's probably not the best word, collision with automobiles, but better interaction. So you create a network that actually works within your community.
Absolutely. So thank you. That was a great introduction. There's tons of benefits to this. So let's look at what's out there now, right? On the screen, you can see we've got some bike lanes on 198 and 800 South. We've got, you know, a couple of paved trails through the city showing that dark green color. But there's still a lot of empty areas, I would say, in the city, right? And so there's a lot of opportunity there for us to fill some of these in. So this is existing conditions. All right, so let's talk about on-street bicycle facilities. We're talking about bike lanes or buffered bike lanes, things like that. In the map there, you can see the proposed network. So that green color is what we call buffered bike lanes. That's where you have like 2 stripes on the pavement to separate you from the traffic. You've got a buffer space there, so you're not right next to the cars. That's from that green color, and then the blue color, we have just your typical bike lanes through there. So that kind of gets you through those key areas throughout the city. All right, let's go to the next one. So this is the trail network. We took a zoomed out image here because we want to connect to the surrounding communities. So you'll notice a few connections like into Salem, right? They're bringing a trail on the Salem Canal, right? The Salem Canal Trail. If you've heard of that, Highline Canal is scheduled to be next. Those are awesome connections that will come into Payson that can easily get you over to Salem, it can get you through town. We show connection up the canyon. So if you want to go, you know, up to the park there, or get up the canyon, that's a great way to do it. Or get, you know, over across I-15 through the Bamberger crossing and over to the UV campus and Front Runner, different connections through town. We have identified these as priorities. So there's not a set timeline tied to these. We understand that trails can be challenging and we have to be a little bit opportunistic when we do these. So when new development comes, that's your opportunity. Hey, we have a trail plan through here. We need you to help us implement that. Or when certain things redevelop, or when properties come for sale, or maybe there's a UDOT project or something like that. There's opportunities that we need to take advantage of. Here, we've identified those priorities. So red is priority 1. Those are the things we really want to focus on and get that base network through the community established first. Then, of course, we've got our priority 2. That's kind of our second round or things that we focus on when there's opportunities. And then priority 3 is kind of long-term phasing. And then we also have a couple shown in that purple color. Those are some of our alternative routes. There's a couple of locations in there where a trail may work in one location or the other. They serve the same purpose, but just depending on land availability and things like that, there may be some alternatives there. Okay, that was a lot of information. Questions on bikes or trails? Yes.
Do we have any kind of statistics, not just bike trails, but the bike lanes on the road? How do we know how much it's used? Are there any numbers, studies? That's a lot of money. to
Drive
spend on
around
that
and
kind of
hit
stuff.
Yeah, that's totally dependent on the area, right?
You might drive on the bike lane. I don't dare drive on the bike lane. Hard to go on 50 miles an hour. I don't. But I'm just wondering, I'm not against it or for it, I don't know yet, but I'm just wondering,
So,
that's a lot of money.
so the on-street bike lanes are often utilizing existing shoulders. Okay, so we have shoulders, there's existing space there. So we're not necessarily building big infrastructure here. It's a restriping thing, but it helps people feel more comfortable. And there is a certain segment of the population that will use these bike lanes, right? It's not going to be your 6-year-old kid maybe that wants to ride down the street, right? It's going to be people that are serious about this and they ride all the time.
I wanna know, like,
Yeah.
how much
Depends
it
on the
is.
area. There are some areas that there's a lot of them. there's
Yep.
some areas that are not.
As you get
By
close
area,
to,
what do you think?
well, close to, what you, close to, you're gonna see them there.
Not there, but here.
It also,
I know that's-
a lot of it has to do with connection as well.
Here.
Here, we don't have a university and we won't really have a university like.
But you have some coming, right?
So that's different.
Yeah, you've got some coming, right? There's UVU, you've got the MTech,
Yeah, but
you know,
it's more like.
there's opportunities, right? But we got to plan for it. We got to think ahead and we got to provide these opportunities. We do include in the plan, I don't have the slide.
No, I'm not being,
A map.
I just wanna know, like, is there, I'm curious.
We have a map in there. It's a Strava map, so it has data for people that are riding their bikes, right? And it's collected by this app Strava, and so that shows usage, and so we have that in the plan. And yeah, there's riders on the road. People are biking out there, and maybe it's not as much as Provo or Orem, but there's also not as many facilities or things in place for them to do so yet, right?
I'm just wondering here. I wonder if there's data somewhere.
Let me just say something. Where trails have been established, bike trails, walking trails, whatever, the use increases exponentially.
I'm not wondering about the
No,
bike.
I'm just, let me finish on that. This is if they are established, for example, along the Mapleton Springville ladder, it was an open connect. We piped it, it's now a trail. The trail use, it was a trail before, but it was just a dirt trail adjacent to the connect. It was a trail before. The trail use went from, let's say, 2 persons a day to 4,000 persons a day.
Right.
Almost instantly. And so if they're there, they will be.
But those aren't the ones I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ones where they're using the shoulder.
Oh, there's a lot of them,
That's
and that
right.
happens
And,
too.
and when
But
I'm
this-
driving around.
the
I start
second-
to see it. And
The
I'm not
second,
talking about
the
the-
second you stripe it, and say bike only or whatever in it, the use comes up. Now, right now, it's too cold for that.
Yeah,
type of
that's why I'm
use.
not talking about winter. But I was just wondering, I'm not.
But there's.
For-
Quick-
There are studies.
Quick statistic
Yeah.
says between 50 to 200%. So I mean, if no one is using the street, then you stripe it and like 10 people ride their bike on it. That's a huge
Like,
increase,
are they
right?
only being used by the people that are like on those 10?
It depends on the environment of the road that the bike lane is on too, right? So sometimes, and that's again why we think of it as a network. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to put a bike lane on a new Main Street cross section because you're still creating an environment where the bikers don't want to be. But maybe we could use one street over and utilize that corridor for the bike lanes and create increased ridership on that one where you can create that separation.
Hey, believe it or not, I'm actually part of this conversation.
Brett, thank you.
It kind of surprises me how much it's increased along between Payson to Salem. So in the mornings, I'll see the kids ride their bikes to school. Most of them are e-bikes, but you know, people are getting out there and riding them. It's not a ton, but there is a big stretch of nothing out there. And just by simply striping it, it added that those people started using it a little bit more than they were before. So I think that it does improve the ridership. It's just, if you build it, they will come kind of a concept. But I can see where the others are coming from. It does seem like a lot of money and makes it difficult for everybody else to park for 2 or 3 people.
Asking, like, in Payson, you know, because you reference Provo, Orem, and those university areas, or Salem, but I'm thinking about Payson, when we would have to put money towards.
And a lot of the time it's just paint.
I mean, if you're saying that you have like, you know, open space, places to go out, work and stuff, that would be something that I would actually assume that would be offered to have.
Right.
Like,
But I'm talking about the main roads or.
sure, but that's why
Recreation.
He's proposing a road open, so that would give them a chance to quantify, so where they want. You know, often the benefits.
Yeah,
Like you said, if it's a buffer bike lane, on the existing road, the cost is free.
Mhm.
That's it.
Unless you're building a median.
No, we're talking existing road. The cost is free.
Right.
Not at a big cost.
I'm just saying, that,
And I'm just curious, right, no, and it's great to ask the questions, and so we fully understand, because I think it goes back to the, you know, like, as we mentioned, we want, various modes, for people to be able to complain. Just like we looked at recreation, but we also looked at destination. And we also looked at, if somebody was, to or getting to the train, and so we looked at that whole network there. But just one little story that I found was very interesting. We have a business, a Q90, that's in Payson, where that's out first east, first south. So when they were looking at locations, they were looking at Payson, and they were also looking at Spanish Fork to look at business. And talking to the owner of the building, when they had decided on Payson, one of the things that they looked at in making the decision site was for their employees to get there on a bicycle. Because a lot of their employees, they commute on a bicycle. And when they were looking at, where a lot of their employees, where they live and where they needed to commute. But, so sometimes we don't even know that people are looking at that. They're looking at that network, they're looking at it for various reasons. But that was something that was, eye-opening to me, that the software company also, they looked at, well, they looked at, you know, they like 2 things. One is close to the park because they wanted their employees, you know, when they were taking a break or their lunch, that they could actually walk over to Memorial Park and enjoy those amenities. But cycling to work was a high priority to that business. And we don't know if people are going to use them, but we want to make sure that there's a good network for those that need. And that was the purpose of the plan, was becoming network for all.
Yeah, we have trail online. Probably increase traffic on it.
It's not gonna be.
So
as
what,
bad.
from 1 to 10?
No, well, it's got quite a bit of traffic.
Right, and it's never gonna be as busy as watching the Uber bikes. God bless me, I'm just looking, just trying to be a base where I wanna eat. And then I gotta watch this other dang lane of when you boom, they just come right by my way. What are you doing? And I'm like, first, and then I want a euro. And so she's like, watch the lane you're in, but it is, if you build it, they will use it. But that is closer to the small. Everything is on the.
But is it cost effective if there's like?
It is, you need all types of facilities, right? We need not just trails, not just bike lanes on small streets, but bigger streets too, right? There, you have to have a whole network, just like a roadway system. We have local roads, we have collectors and arterials and freeways. You got to have the whole network. And some road or some bike facilities may be less comfortable to some users than others. That's okay, but we need that full network there. So, thank you. These are great questions, great discussion. We also looked at intersection and crossings, right? These are the hardest part for bikers and pedestrians, right? How do we cross these roads? And so we identified intersections and crossing locations where we can make improvements and help facilitate those types of movements. So we've identified those in the plan and proposed things, whether that's improvements at the road, maybe like what you see in the picture there, some bulb outs, some additional signage, some flashing lights, improved visibility, lighting, those types of things. Or sometimes it's grade separated, right? We have some of those around town. Up by Hillman Fields, you've got the underpass under the road there that you can walk back and forth between the fields and different things like that. Those are awesome, right? And they're a little expensive. We can't put those everywhere, but where we can and where it makes sense and where we get high usage, as you were talking about before, where we have those high usage places, we need to do some grade separated, right? Go under or over the road. Other places it's at grade. So we've identified those there in the plan, so we can focus on those. And I think that's it. So we made it. We're ready for the second half of the game. So
Yay, we made it.
I can ask for questions, but I don't know if we want that.
I would just say, you know, this is not the last that you've seen of this. This is not the last that we're going to talk about this. If you have individual comments, direct them to Jill.
So do we have to pay you for overtime?
That would be nice.
So can I make a motion?
Yes,
And we adjourn?
yes.
Second.
The second has to come from the council.
They did.
Oh, I thought she did.
I see we all second.
Oh, everybody vote. And we want to stay here. We want to go home.
Just the three of you. And Brett.
I'm home now. I'm done.
Did he say?
Yeah, he said yes.
I said yes.
Yeah, we're adjourned.